I'm Lucy.
And I'm Jennifer.
You're listening to Everything I Know About.
Each week, we share everything we know about a new topic, equipped with some internet research and a little too much exposure to pop culture.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
We've got Jennifer back. Jennifer, how was your week off? Week off of podcasting, not of Patreon work.
Yeah, I've been in the depths of app development and frankly not loving it, but I'm very excited to get it out for our users and for us. I'm excited to have an app. And I feel like it will be like a lifetime achievement to be like, damn, I built an app. It's definitely a learning curve though, and I'm in the depths of that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going out tonight and very much looking forward to having a margarita. So,
You're going on a date tonight?
yeah, I am. It's a second date.
Is this the guy who took you to a bookstore on the first date?
Yes.
Okay. Exciting. So we approve so
Yeah.
far.
Good first date. And he is a little bit older than me, which is a great segue.
Wow. Wait, how much older is he?
Either 35 or 36.
Okay.
So not crazy.
Yeah. So that brings us to our topic for today, which is age gap relationships. And I wanted to do this episode. It's been on my mind. I feel like, especially with season 3 of White Lotus, which features 2 age gap relationships, it's just been more in the current public consciousness. But in particular, I wanted to have a discussion about this article that was published in The Cut this time last year. I'd heard of this article from a friend of mine who is at HBS at the time, Harvard Business School, and it was making the rounds amongst all of this person's classmates. It was a huge, very controversial article, and I have never really discussed it with anyone, but I read it at the time when he sent it to me, and I've since then read it like 3 or 4 more times. I just read it again before we're recording right now, and I just think it brings up so many interesting, not often discussed points around age gap relationships. So the article is called "The Case for Marrying an Older Man" by Grazie Sophia Christie, who is a self-defined writer living in Miami and London. She's working on her first novel. And the subtitle is "A Woman's Life is All Work and Little Rest. An Age Gap Relationship Can Help." All right, so Jennifer, I sent you this article. Before we get into it, I'm curious if you have any immediate reactions you want to share, anything high level, if this topic relates to you in any kind of way, or if you've thought about it before.
I've definitely thought about it before, and the article took a different approach to it than I thought. I was really surprised by her take, which was overwhelmingly positive about age gap relationships. Obviously, she's in one and in a happy marriage, so it makes sense. I was in a true age gap relationship. I was 24 and dating a 34-year-old.
What? I did not know this.
Yeah, that's a true age gap. And we were together for, as we know from my breakup episode, tend to be on and off. But like by the time things were said and done, it was like almost a year and a half.
Wow.
I don't have positive things to say about being in an age gap relationship because of that. But yeah, I like kind of resonated with some of the things that she was saying about like having sort of this like mentor figure in your life. But I have a lot of thoughts. I don't even know where to jump in, frankly.
Yeah. Well, I've got some questions. Before we get into the article, just give me the high level of this situation you were in. So like, how did you meet this person who is 10 years older than you?
We were working together. It was at a startup. He was on a different team, so it wasn't like crazy. And like everyone in the office knew that we were dating. So it wasn't like a scandal. I mean, maybe it was a little bit of a scandal. Like the CEO knew and stuff. And she would like make comments. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, he was warned by coworkers that I was too immature for him because I was 24. Ended up not being true. I feel like in a lot of ways I was much more mature than he was. And I felt like I was shamed for being my age. Frankly, like I had dropped a lot of money for me at the time on getting a home share on the Jersey Shore. And it was over the summer and I was like going to go down to the Jersey Shore on the weekends with some friends. And that was a deal breaker for him. He was like, if you go, you're disrespecting me. And I don't want to be with he literally called me a slut. He was like, I don't want to be with some 24-year-old slut who just drinks and hangs out with men at the Jersey Shore. And so my dumbass lost out on $2,500 on this deposit and just like never went down. And I like shut off my social life and I just like conformed into the person that he thought I should be, when now looking back, I mean, even at the time, I didn't feel good about it. But like looking back, I was like, I lost my early mid-20s being with a man who wanted me to act like I was 34 and I just wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like he has some other issues other than just being older. Like, sounds like very controlling as well. But
oh, I have lots to say about
yeah.
that, but we'll just leave it at
All
that.
Right, we'll leave
it
it there for now. All right. So back to the article. To give all our listeners some context, the article is fairly long. I definitely encourage you to read it if you're interested, but I'll be sharing some quotes as we go through this episode. So the article starts off, quote, "In the summer, in the south of France, my husband and I like to play, rather badly, the lottery. We take long, scorching walks to the village, gratuitous beauty, gratuitous heat, kicking up dust and languid debates over how we'd spend such an influx. I purchase scratch-offs, jackpot tickets, scraping the former with euro coins and restaurants too fine for that. I never cash them in, nor do I check the winning numbers, for I already won something like the lotto, with its gifts and its curses, when he married me. He is 10 years older than me. I chose him on purpose, not by chance. As far as life decisions go, on balance, I recommend it." So that is how we start. One, beautiful writing, like, go girl. Like, I was immediately captured, but also like a very controversial start, right? Like, she is referencing how I think a lot of society views these relationships, which is, oh, the younger woman is the gold digger. And she's immediately addressing that with this lottery analogy. And she's not ashamed of it. She's saying, like, I chose this life. I planned this. This was my accomplishment in a way, which I thought was a very interesting opening.
Yeah, I mean, her writing is gorgeous. And that's definitely what struck out to me the most, is that she's not framing this as like, my husband got something by marrying a younger woman. She's like, I achieved something. And part of her feeling that way is that she feels cherished for her age too. She doesn't feel like she's perceived in the relationship as somebody who is reaching or gold digging. She feels that she provides the value of youth in their dynamic. And when she sees herself through her husband's eyes, she likes what she sees, is what it seems like, due to their age gap. She's like providing this like vivacious zest for life thing for him.
Yeah. Whereas you were recounting with your experience, it was more like a chip on your shoulder, your age.
Yeah. Seen more as like an immaturity.
Yeah.
Or like should be at a different stage. Whereas in her dynamic, she's like, no, I dance at tables and my husband thinks that's cute. And he likes that about me.
Yeah. It's interesting. In this article, the author, she met her husband when she was 20, a junior at Harvard studying English. And she comes to this realization that her biggest asset is her youth. She could either spend all her time stressing, studying, working hard, grinding away in corporate America, or she could take the shortcut, which is just marrying an older man. And that older man will provide her her dream life. Very interesting realization to have when you're 20. I don't know, when I was younger, I think like now I read this article and I'm like, I get some of your arguments, girl. Life is hard. But when I was graduating high school, when I was in my early 20s, I was so bought into the girl boss mentality. And I know that's been debunked and fallen out of fashion at this point. But still, to have made it to Harvard, to have your whole life up till then valued academics, right? Which is, I assume, how you got into Harvard. Yeah. To suddenly 180 and be like, no, it's my physical looks that I'm going to rely on. And I'm sure that was such a contrast to her peers. So it's just really interesting to me how one would have this realization. And she literally changes her behavior. So she starts to study at the Harvard Business School library to be able to run into these older men. She starts sneaking into grad school parties, and she ends up meeting her future husband outside of one of these parties. She like bums a cigarette off of him.
She nailed it, frankly. She nailed it.
Yeah, I just can't imagine being 20 and like thinking that way. I feel like at 20, you're not disillusioned yet. You have so many like dreams and hopes for the future. Like you think life will work out for you.
You know, yes, absolutely. But she was also an English student. She's a writer. She's creative at heart. I think because of her aspirations, like her artistic aspirations, she may have been more clear-eyed about how difficult that would be to achieve, and then like not wanting to grind it out in like the soulless job, not having the girl boss mentality, like having more of the free spirit artistic mentality. I think she had a lot of foresight. I think she knew what she wanted out of life and was like, I'm not going to be a starving artist. That's not for me, but I want to be an artist.
Yeah. So, okay, I feel like everyone can recognize the premise here is undeniably true in that, like, obviously you need money to have a good life, and you can get that in only so many ways. So I don't think there's much to discuss there. I think it's more like this argument. I think the way that she lays out her argument is that if you're like a logical person, this is the inevitable conclusion. And I want to talk about that idea because she says, quote, "I could not understand why my female classmates did not join me, given their intelligence." She presents this as, if you are a strong, independent, smart woman, how could you make any other choice? Your youth is your, she calls it a superpower. Why assume the burdens of womanhood? It's too quick to vanish upper hand, but not its brief benefits at least.
Yeah.
Because we all know, like even at 20, you know that society is stacked against you. As men get older, they gain more power, they gain more wealth, they gain more acceptance. It's the opposite for women. Even if you gain more wealth as a woman, you lose your youth and society does not accept, it ignores older women.
Yeah, frankly, I hated reading this article as a single 30-year-old. It was not the greatest, but no, I think she is right in so many ways. I mean, do you fundamentally disagree with that premise, or are we just accepting it?
I think at this point in my life, I definitely accept it. I don't know what I would have said it when I was younger. Like, I think when I first read this article, I was like, this is shocking to me, but not in a way where I was like, this feels untrue. It just felt like somebody speaking a truth that I already have known and accepted, but no one ever talks about. Maybe we hint at it, you know? But like laid out in this bare fashion, it is depressing, I think, for anyone, because it's just like, is that really all I'm worth?
Yeah, it felt like her argument, at least the way that I interpreted her argument, was on the dating market, especially. An older successful man is going to value a younger woman more, and your value only dwindles as you age. So if you're going to like get the best fish on the market, so to speak, you should start looking early and probably go higher in age. And I think that's true for some subset of the male population, but I actually think because of the economic times that we're in, it's not true anymore. And she got married like 7 years ago, but like call it 10 years ago that we're in that climate when like things were a little more hopeful or like a little different than they are now. You hear so much now about men who are looking for an independent woman, and that you actually have to flag that early on because it's code for like, I don't want to take care of somebody, or like, I don't want to be responsible as the provider. And as it becomes harder and harder to provide for a family, for two people, it's actually quite attractive to be with somebody who like kind of has their own thing going on, has their own source of income, is maybe more established. And frankly, like men kind of like to be taken care of. And I think it takes like a very traditionally masculine man to seek out, desire, and be truly happy with a younger woman. Like that man is extremely secure, probably wealthy, all the things that she's looking for. But I think that applies to a very specific subset of the male population, and like not really more broadly in the way that she's implying.
Yeah. Well, I think like she does speak to what you were referencing with like men want to be taken care of and how that is fundamentally not a fair trade-off for women.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there are men who want that, but I think her perspective is like, you're a kind of, she never says this, so this is my interpretation, but she's like, kind of like, you're a sucker if you fall for that. What ends up happening is that, let's say you're 25, you're with a guy who's 25, you're taking care of him, you're like folding his laundry, you're showing him how to do basic tasks that his mother did for him and he never learned on his own. And I've even seen this referenced in like social media trends, girls being like, oh, thank you to my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend for training him so well.
Yes. Yeah.
And like putting in the emotional labor to turn him into a good man. And he didn't end up with that girl who put in all of that work. He ended up with the next girl, right? And the author of this article, her point is like, you're 25, you're trying to figure out your own life. You're trying to figure out like who you are, you're working yourself, you're climbing, and you also have to have this person like on your back that you're like carrying. So I think she does recognize that in the dating market, men want either someone their age or younger, but I don't even think she can really understand the women who opt for the, I'll go with the same age man. When you start talking about these bigger age gaps, because her age gap is 10 years, I mean, a man who's 30 who's trying to date a 20-year-old, there's no way he thinks that she's independent, you know? He's definitely got to be in it for some other reason. There's going to be some sort of monetary difference and therefore power difference.
That's what I thought was really interesting. And she briefly talks about it, but not in a way that's negative at all. She doesn't seem to have a negative view on their power difference. Like she says, he's her mentor, her teacher in a lot of ways. Yes, also her friend and her lover. But when you think about the dynamics that you can have in a relationship, you can either have the parent-child or like the adult-child, call it. No, seriously, this is like relationship therapy speak.
Oh, gosh.
Someone's the adult in the relationship, someone's the child, like the parent-child, the the teacher child, whatever you want to call it. Or you can have like an adult to adult relationship or a child to child relationship. Like she clearly is in the adult child dynamic.
Yeah.
Expressly so by saying he's her mentor and her teacher. Like he has the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
And she's okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be okay with that?
I really buy into her argument. It's not that she is ignorant of the power dynamics. She addresses them, but she addresses them so convincingly.
She does.
She addresses this point twice. First, she does it in this kind of more empowered tone where she like proactively can picture the reader's response. And she's like, I know my husband is not my partner. Like, I don't use that term, assuming we're equals. He's my mentor, my lover. And as you said, like, only in certain contexts is he my friend, which I also thought is interesting because everyone always talks about wanting to marry their best friend, you know? And she's like, no, that's the wrong way to think about it. And she does say, like, I'll never forget it, how he showed me around our first place, like he was introducing me to myself. This is the wine you'll drink, where you'll keep your clothes. We vacation here. This is the other language we speak. You'll learn it. And I did. What is your own identity versus someone else's, right? And she says, like, I don't fool myself. My marriage has its cons. There are only so many times one can say thank you for splendid scenes, fine dinners, before the phrase starts to grate.
Yeah. Yep. I loved that line. That was one of the more fascinating lines to me in the entire article.
Mm-hmm. And so I think she's like very, very aware. It's just like for her, the trade-off is still worth it. And honestly, I did find it compelling. She does say later in the article, she's like, mostly I worry that if he ever betrayed me and I had to move on, I would survive, but would find in my humor, preferences, the way I make coffee or the bed, nothing that he did not teach, change, mold, recompose, stamp with his initials, the way Renaissance painters hid in their paintings their faces among a crowd. So there's clearly a trade-off, right? But her argument is it's still worth it. And is it so bad to be influenced by another? You have all of your 20s now to like live as if money did not matter. So like you can go explore and yes, you're going to be so guided by this man just because of the power dynamic, both from the money perspective, but also the age gap, right? And like knowledge and maturity and all of that. However, I'm like, yes, I do think if she were to ever get a divorce, it would be really hard. But she would still be what, like 30? I don't know, or like 35? She could have a whole other life and like it's kind of cool, honestly, to be able to live all of these lives. Whereas for most women, like my situation, I'm just like on a very normal path that I think many people can probably relate to, which is like I worked and climbed and struggled alongside my husband in my 20s. Now I'm like 30. Do I really have a chance at another life? I'm staring down the barrel of almost being 35 and feeling like I need to have children or not. It doesn't feel like I have all of this freedom of choice ahead of me.
Be grateful. Be grateful.
Yeah, let me pause. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm thinking, as like a fellow romanticized person, like I super identify with this woman. I was like, I get it. And I feel like she has this incredibly romantic idea of like, you meld with your partner, they shape you, you become one. That quote that you just read about the Renaissance painting, like she is imprinted with her husband's touch. And I think there is something extremely beautiful about that. It's a type of intimacy too. You're almost molded and created and shaped by this person for this person. So it's like a very, very deep thing. I think that's so romantic in and of itself. But also, I'm saying this as her, like as somebody who seems like she is more malleable in her identity or is searching for the romantic idea and like the feeling of intimacy, like the feeling of being a part of something bigger without the struggle. She got to achieve that through her husband, but also like she got an identity handed to her that already checked all the boxes without having to do all of the work of like going through the iterations and like being the phoenix rising from the ashes, you know, like having all the struggle and then like finally getting there. It was like the identity that she wanted was handed to her and she had to shape herself into it. Yes. And like maybe that's part of the cons that she's talking about, but I think it's kind of like romantic. And she references a lot of more like modern classic literature too in this idea. And like if you read, I don't know, like The Age of Innocence or something, like more of these early 20th century like romance books. I think that idea is very ingrained in that of like, you know, being shaped by your partner, shaped by your husband and like handed this beautiful identity to you. It almost seems like she's living out some like literary dream.
Yeah. Okay, so you're like into it. It doesn't bother you that she doesn't have her own identity.
No, because I think she's like kind of living a literary fairy tale.
Yeah.
Like I think she's consciously doing it. It's not like she's like asleep. Right?
Yeah. She definitely made the choice with eyes wide open. I also think like even when you're in a same age relationship, your personalities obviously influence each other and you change each other anyway. It's not like you're ever completely independent and like the cost of this is that you're influenced. You're always influenced. And I think in Avery and I's relationship, it's kind of just like who has the stronger preferences or who has a stronger personality when it comes to certain things. And then that ends up shaping our relationship over time. I mean, we've been together now for like almost 7 years. It's the same for me, you know, even though I'm not in an age gap relationship, like who would I be without Avery? Like, I don't even know. Like our lives have been intertwined for so long. So everyone kind of ends up in the same situation, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious what you think about like, because her husband's French.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's some cultural influence going on here?
Do you mean like part of the attraction for her is that he's French and he's foreign and interesting and has an accent and all this?
Well, part of that, but it seems like a very French idea to go after a younger woman. And I'm wondering if it would work the same way in America. Perhaps tainted by my own experiences, but I do think that what she's describing in her relationship is an age gap relationship that still has a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
That goes both ways. And he seems like a very like securely masculine person.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not deeply controlling over her or anything, or like she's not at least flagging that. Whereas I feel like here culturally, like if you're a 30-year-old man with a 20-year-old woman, like it probably would be flagged as like, okay, that guy is very immature. And that guy maybe is acting more like a 24-year-old and probably has some immaturity issues himself, probably has some more control issues. Whereas in France, I feel like it's just a different vibe. It's a different culture.
I mean, she doesn't talk a lot about his mindset at all, what he was thinking when he met her. She does talk about his friends' reactions. And he was like at Harvard Business School at the time, so in a very American context, and they were extremely disapproving. She says, especially friends his age who were women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because what you just said about people assuming that he's immature, it seemed like in this article, she was saying his female friends assumed she was immature and that she was being taken advantage of. Or it was more that like she can't be at his level rather than he is at her level to be even interested, you know?
Mm-hmm. But if we're looking at like Leonardo DiCaprio with his 24-year-old models, I'm not looking at that and being like, wow, that model is not mature enough for him. I'm like, Leonardo DiCaprio is immature. And I get that same vibe from a 30-year-old man dating a 20-year-old woman. When I hear of it tangentially in my life, I'm like, ooh, that guy has some growing up to do. Like, what is a 30-year-old man thinking that he's getting out of a 20-year-old woman?
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. And I understand the Leo reference as well, because I feel similarly.
Yeah.
The Leo thing, to me, I'm like, because it's a pattern of behavior, it's like an issue with him. It's an issue with Leo. Similar to how if I meet a white man who's only ever dated Asian women, I'm like, you have a fetish. Like, there's an issue with you.
Yeah.
If it only happens once, I think that's where I don't know as much.
I mean, she even says it, like, she didn't have an identity yet. And he clearly did. And that was like part of the draw. So like, you got to look at it from his side. What is the draw of having this person that hasn't had enough life experience to really know who they are yet? I don't know.
I feel like he wanted to shape her.
That's what
I mean.
He
wanted to be the daddy.
Thank you. We're getting at it. I see that and I'm like, okay, that's a man who wants to control somebody.
Ah, okay. And you're saying that's a sign of immaturity in him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being controlling is immaturity in and of itself. It's also a personality trait. But yeah, it's like emotional immaturity on a lot of levels. That's why I said he seems securely masculine, which is interesting because I would have assumed that somebody who is more interested in being the molder, the shaper, aka the controller, would be more immature. And that type of control can become insidious very quickly.
Mm-hmm. This is making me think about 50 Shades of Grey. Wasn't Anastasia Steele supposed to be like in college when all that went down?
Was she? I don't know.
I feel like she was like interviewing him for a college reporting project.
I think
so.
You're
This
right.
is like literally the same situation.
Yeah. The premise of that book is that he has control issues.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think there are little threads of that in this too.
Benevolent patriarchy.
Yeah, even that quote, you know, like, this is what we do. You'll learn. And she does learn. You know, that phrasing feels very particular.
Extremely.
What do you think of when she talks about other people's reactions to their relationship? She says transactional thinking in relationships is both as American as it gets and the least kosher subject in the American romantic lexicon. should we be so judgy? Like, obviously there's this gold digger narrative, but like, is it really such a bad thing? As a woman, why does it feel like such a personal attack when we see these kind of relationships where it feels so transactional?
Oh, I mean, I'm going down a rabbit hole of my own thoughts here. This is extremely personal, but I think it dilutes the romantic idea that you're in a partnership, that you're in love. Transactional relationships are kind of inherently unsexy, right? Like there's not a lot of romance in that. You're in it for a business deal. That's not to say that they can't coexist, because clearly she loves her husband, but like also recognizes that it is transactional on some level. If you're thinking about, oh, I'm with my partner because they're my soulmate and we have this soulful, deep connection, like that kind of eliminates room for transaction because it's totally emotional based. And then, we can get into potentially like Christian Puritan roots with that in the American psyche, at least. But I do think it kind of makes us uncomfortable to think about that. Like when we see older men age gap relationships where we know it's just about money, it doesn't seem sincere. Mm-hmm. There's like an authenticity problem with it.
Well, I wonder how much of it is influenced by just what's portrayed. Because it's not like I can honestly think of that many people I know personally who are in relationships like this.
No. Yeah, me either.
I feel like whenever I see things pictured in the media, it's always a very, very stark power difference. And that's why I think, like, you told me already you're not watching this season of The White Lotus, right?
I just haven't yet.
Okay, yeah. So there's 2 age gap relationships portrayed there. One is the very classic rich older man, young, hot wife. They don't really seem that into each other. They kind of seem like they're there because of some sort of agreement or arrangement. There is another couple, which on the surface, you assume it's the same because I think everybody's brain like assumes that. And then it becomes clear that no, she is really, really in love with him. It seems to actually have nothing to do with the money. And she like literally thinks they're soulmates. And that's what she's saying on the show. And I was like, why do I struggle with this so much? Like, why can't I believe this? Like, it just seems so hard for me to wrap my head around, even though I feel like by questioning it, I am demeaning her and that like, oh, this woman's so deluded. Like, no, why can't you just be in love with someone who is 20 years older than you? I don't know.
Okay, I want to clarify. I wasn't saying I feel like age gap relationships are not authentic. I was saying specifically like the idea of having a transactional relationship.
Yeah. What I'm saying is when I see age gap relationships, my gut instinct is to assume they're transactional. And then even when I get data that it's not, that it is some sort of romantic soulmate connection,
you don't buy
the money is not a part of it. I find it really hard to buy it. And I'm like, that to me, I'm like, why?
Okay, in the show, is he old looking and she's young looking?
Yes, he's extremely old and bad looking.
Oh, okay, it's the attraction thing. You're like, how are you really seeing past this? I mean, I feel the same way when it's going to sound terrible, but if you see like, even if they're the same age, like a woman who's like with a very unattractive man and she's not, you're like, he must be rich. I mean, it's the same idea. It has nothing to do with the age gap. It's just like the age gap like layers that on top of it.
Yeah, okay, so maybe it's more that we're like, our brains...
Shallow?
Yeah, no, shallow. But like also our brains like cannot accept when like is not with like.
Yeah. You're like, something doesn't make sense
Something
here. Like,
doesn't make up. Yeah.
But it's biology, right? Like I guess it's also biology as like a woman to go after status and money. Like that is biology, frankly. So it makes sense, but we just know what's happening. So when they're defying that, we're like, no, this isn't about money or status. And also the physicality doesn't make sense. What is happening?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like with George Clooney and Amal, they have like almost a 20-year gap, but it's George Clooney. Like, I don't think anyone was like questioning that much.
No, no, not at all. But she was also older. Well, not really. I mean, I think she was in her like mid to late 30s when they met.
Exactly. Not that much older. But I think because she's
the standards
also
are different.
Sure. But like also because, it's like the whole picture. Because also she's a lawyer at the UN, you know? So then you're like, oh, she's competent.
She's very established on her own.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is so sad, honestly. It's sad that it's just sad that younger women bear the burden of all of this baggage that society puts on them. They assume they're incompetent. You know, unless you're like a doctor or a lawyer or go to Harvard, then people are like, oh, maybe you're the exception. But like the assumption is that the woman is only in it for the money, or she's not as competent, or she's being taken advantage of, or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like incompetence, but just more of like the power dynamic there. But yeah, that is an interesting case. But George Clooney's like attractive. So we're not looking at that being like, oh, what the hell?
Right, exactly. Well, okay. Speaking of, all of the news right now about Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco.
Oh my God. That's okay. Yeah, that's well,
Right.
and now
that's exactly
Justin
what we're talking
Bieber.
about. Sure. Well, that's a whole other thing. But like that relationship, Selena and Benny, everyone was like, I don't get it because she's more attractive than him. And then now they're doing the whole press junket for their new album, and he's giving all these interviews, and he's coming off so well spoken and mature and like educated about mental health that everyone's like, oh, I get it now. I think when you see something that's like jarring, it's not like with like, it's something you can't understand, then you almost need like an extenuating circumstance to justify it.
Yep. Ariana Grande, Ethan Slater. Still don't know what that one's about, but
no, that ended.
Something going on. Is it official?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Okay, final question about this article. So the last piece I wanted to discuss I thought was really interesting is she says that the feminism sold to women was like, you should find a partner in life and like, you know, your marriage is all about partnerships, that it conflated when a woman's best years are with a man's best years and basically said your timelines are the same. So throughout your 20s, you're kind of trying to make it in your career. Your 30s, you're like more established. You're thinking about a family, like all of that. And her argument is that a woman's best years are different than a man's best years. So that's why you should not go for a same age relationship because you're just like fundamentally mismatched even then. What do you think of that?
Oh, 100%. I think it's the rare man that is on a woman's level at the younger ages. Exceptions to the rule, but that is kind of the status quo. I'm so about that. Honestly, I wish I would have read this like 10 years ago.
You would have been in the grad school library.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so real. I think about that even now, dating as a 30-year-old right now. I'm like, if I were a guy, I totally understand why I would wait until I'm in like my early to mid 30s to start seriously looking for a partner. Because my value on the market is about me being a provider, me being like established in my career. And you probably think that you can't even attract the best partner until you've maximized your own attractiveness in those areas, which you're not going to even do until you're in your early 30s, call it. Best case scenario. Meanwhile, a woman, when are we the hottest? Probably like 25 to 30, maybe. I don't know. Somewhere in that like mid.
I hope it doesn't end at 30.
I mean, same, but like just, you know, ballparking it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I think this. I'm saying like, generally, societally speaking, it's probably somewhere in like your mid, late 20s, maybe creeping into early 30s. So yeah, if you're 25 years old and you've got it going on, a guy isn't even going to be in a place where he's thinking about romance because he's already established himself and is like, okay, now I can breathe. Now I can think about having a partner until he's probably in his early 30s. So like, yeah, that makes total sense to me. Or you're building with somebody and like she says, like kind of putting in the emotional labor before you're really getting anything out of it. And probably he's still focused on his career more than you because it's just like the pressure is different.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the new thinking for me was, even if I don't even think with the man at all, and I'm just thinking about like a woman's timeline, which is obviously influenced by certain biological clock factors. As I said earlier, like, why do I feel so much pressure around this baby decision now? It's because like I don't feel like I really got to live my life yet. And now I'm like facing also not living my life for potentially 20 years if I chose to have a child. And I think she put it in this really interesting way. I mean, she says, when we decided we wanted to be equal to men, we got on men's time. We worked when they worked, retired when they retired, had to squeeze pregnancy, children, menopause somewhere impossibly in the margins. So when is her time exactly? For leisure, ease, liberty. There is no brand of feminism which achieved female rest. If women's problem in the 50s was a paralyzing malaise, now it is that they are too active, too capable, never permitted a vacation they didn't plan. That, I'm like, even if I was just thinking about my desires, totally like separate from a man's, like I think it is so different for men and women. Like I think when Avery thinks about kids, it's like he doesn't have to sacrifice that much. He can have children and still like have an adventurous life where he travels and does all these things and he's still like at his peak or whatever. And for me, I'm like, as soon as I have a kid, like I'm like past my peak. My body's gonna like really take a hit. Yes, I think I can recover, but biologically, I just can't put myself first anymore. I'll have this child I have to like put first. And so when did I get to live my life? When did I get to go travel the world and go on vacation and do all these things? Whereas this woman, she got married. Her whole 20s, she spent traveling and writing and like pursuing her passions, literally not needing to worry about money, not needing to do things she didn't like, trying to save up for some sort of ideal future. So now her husband's like, I don't know, 40. He's like, I'm ready to have a kid. And so is she. Like, she already like scratched the itch. And so she's like, yeah, in the article, she's 27. And she's like, it doesn't really scare me. I've had plenty of time to like live my life. And in terms of like even that question of like figuring out who you are, yeah, she was heavily influenced by her husband, but she also had all of that time to herself to figure out who she is before she had to give it away to a child.
Yeah, I deeply resonate with what you're saying. I think there's also, aside from just the facts of the years and the ages and when you get to have rest time, there's something about the mental space too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about this a lot actually, because when I was engaged, it was like the finding a partner box was ticked off. And a lot of my mental space where that was going went to like, what do I want to do with my life? Oh, I want to start a business. Oh, I want to write a book. Like, and I started thinking about things that I hadn't thought about since I was like 17 years old because that box was checked. And now that that box isn't checked anymore, it's like that pressure of life comes back on and it's taking up the space that could have been devoted or should be devoted. And it takes like discipline to keep devoting it to like the business, the book, the things I want to do instead of figuring out this other piece of life.
Mm-hmm.
And men have the luxury, what I was saying before, of deeply just thinking about themselves in their 20s because they know that their viability on the market of like finding a partner actually really happens in their early to mid 30s. Whereas as us women, like we are still thinking about finding a partner in our 20s while also doing the traditional man work of building our careers, doing all of this stuff. It's just so much space.
Mm-hmm.
It takes up so much space in your brain that you can't focus. And so I'm thinking about like, okay, let's say you go her route and you get to enjoy your life in your 20s. You're just thinking about your partner. You're just thinking about like the domesticity of your life. You have a child, you raise it, you have help. And then it's really in your like mid to late 30s, early 40s that you get to decide, what is my career going to look like? What is my creative spark going to be? Like, what am I going to invest my life into and build? Instead of us, where we did it the like man way, the traditional way, where we're thinking about that all the time on top of everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, why are you like making every huge decision in your life before you turn 30? Because that's the pressure. It's like 30 is the cutoff. And like before then, you better have your like life figured out. You better have your partner. You better have like an amazing job and an amazing career ahead of you. That's why like we both had existential crises, as with many other people, when we turned 30. Because like no one actually has any of that shit figured out. But that is very much the message that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. I think for men, it is easier to figure out by 30.
Well, they're not even thinking about the whole picture. I feel like for men in their 20s, it's like, oh, if you meet somebody and you want to get married to them, like that's a bonus.
Right.
But it's not like your life drive to be like, oh, I'm dating around and I like really need to find somebody. Whereas for women, if you haven't found somebody by 30, like you're a failure. Like if you have,
yeah, that's so right.
you kind of missed out on something.
Yeah, because they're only focusing on one thing. So it's easier for them to accomplish that one thing. And for us, it's harder because we're focused on like everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right.
Not us lamenting
Right.
the female experience yet again.
Yeah. So, okay. It sounds like we're both on board. Young women out there who are listening. And guys, we have a lot of young women who listen to us. People have written in being like, I find you and Jennifer so inspirational, like role models for my career. And then we come out with an episode like this.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, not there yet. Currently in my reinvention phase. Well, check back in the year. We'll see how that goes. Lucy's got her shit together, though.
No. If it's not one thing, it's another, you know? I think that's life. When I had my crises at 30, I was like, oh shit, like I thought I'd have it all figured out by now. And then I came to the uncomfortable but necessary acceptance phase where I was like, I actually think I'm just gonna have a crisis every 2 years. It'll be about something different every time. Yeah, I think it's normal. Yeah. I honestly think
your current one is about children. Like your last 2-year one was about career, now it's about children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just think every 2 years, everybody has a crisis.
Well, my current reinvention phase is, where do I want to live? So
you got to come to New York.
I'm feeling the itch to move.
I love that.
I kind of want to move to the UK. I don't know how I would achieve that, but I think I just need to go for like a month first and see if I could live there.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. I had a dream last night that I was in love with a British man. I'd been thinking about moving to the UK already. And then in my dream, I was in love with a British man. And I was like, shit, maybe it's a sign.
The universe is sending you signs.
He was also the Prince of England, so I don't think it was...
Okay. Maybe you've been watching too much With Love, Megan. To close it out real quick, I did look at just some quick stats because I was so persuaded by this woman's argument. But I wanted to know, like, on a whole, what does society report in terms of marital satisfaction and like how it relates to age gaps in relationships? And the results were pretty surprising, actually. So I looked at this big paper that looked at all this data in Australia across many years. The results indicated that in the first 6 to 10 years of marriage, both men and women experienced the most satisfaction with younger partners and the least satisfaction with older partners. So it's the older partner who's more satisfied. The person who's married to the older person, like the younger person, is least satisfied, even from the beginning. So the woman writing this article, theoretically, like if she was the average, obviously everybody has their unique personal experience. I'm not saying hers is not valid, but on average, that's actually not the expected outcome. Whereas her husband in this situation would be happier in the first 6 to 10 years of marriage. As the marriage ages, marital satisfaction declines more rapidly over time for both men and women in differently aged couples compared to similarly aged couples, so that after 6 to 10 years, the initial higher levels of satisfaction is erased.
Yeah.
What contributes to marital satisfaction? Like the biggest factor is a couple's ability to weather unexpected negative economic shocks. This could come into play with just like different life stages. If you have two people who are similar age, you're probably making like a similar amount of money too and all of that. Because this isn't looking specifically at like rich older men with younger women, right? This is looking at the population as a whole with these age gaps. Yeah. So it is interesting. All right. Well, if you are a listener and you are in your early 20s, lots of food for thought. Highly recommend you read this article.
Or if you're in an age gap relationship, write into us. Let us know about it. I would love to hear your personal takes, personal stories.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. If you enjoy the pod, we would love for you to give us a follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts, which helps us get the word out and reach new listeners. Our sources are available on Patreon, where if you choose to become a patron, you'll also get access to bonus content, our monthly book club, and our eternal gratitude.
If you'd like to get in touch or suggest a topic for a future episode, email us at everythingiknowabouttpod@gmail.com or DM us across all socials at EikaPod, that's EIKA pod. Thanks for listening and see you next week.